can be used for anybody, children, adolescents, adults, and really any ages and cultural backgrounds.
Okay, right. And does it need to be a child or an adult that has suffered trauma that can benefit from our therapy, or is it generally any sort of mental health issue?
Great question. Our therapy can, it treats, simple symptoms such as even low self-esteem.
Okay.
Maybe even frustration levels, building or enhancing a child's ability to withstand certain issues, but it also can treat psychiatric issues.
Okay.
So it's really a broad spectrum.
Wow. Okay. So you've graduated from New York.
Yes.
In New York University as an art therapist, psychotherapist, and then what are your next steps? What do you do?
So after that, I sort of went into the humanitarian sector, where I was a psychosocial support specialist in Sierra Leone during the Ebola epidemic.
Wow.
But I didn't exactly use my therapeutic skills there. It was more about training trainers on providing psychosocial activities for children who were affected by the virus.
Wow.
So I was able to travel a little bit within the country. But generally our therapy or even sort of psychological first aid is not heavily focused on in the NGO world. So,
and you would think it's actually something that should be used because,
exactly.
Because a lot of, what NGOs do, for example, when I know if they go to places like in continents like in Africa and in certain regions, they're there to really, help people suffering from whether it's poverty or whether it's disease, but these people are coming with some kind of psychological burden.
Exactly. I mean, any humanitarian disaster will create some kind of trauma.
Sure.
People will be highly distressed. So you need to create programs where you also assess for their mental well-being, not just their physical needs and immediate needs such as water and shelter, but also their psychological well-being.
Absolutely. Because I said in the beginning, there are people who think it's good, there are people who think it's not that good. But what is your opinion on social media when it comes to children?
Yeah, also another great question. And very complicated. I tend to not sort of favor one over the other. I think, as I said, it's so different from client to client and how they use it. If one client uses it in a very good way that helps them to overcome their issue, then I'm all for it.
Right.
But if I see that this is becoming a problem, it's adding even more problems to their problem, then you kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, this is not working. Yeah.
And what would that be as adding a problem to whatever they're going through now with using social media? Would it be it's becoming an addiction, they can't get off it, or they're only using that platform to communicate? What would guarantee somebody's problem behavior with that?
Yeah, so you mentioned the keyword addiction. So many kids are now, even as young as 2-year-olds, are becoming addicted to social media, but more specifically the internet. So they're accessing YouTube channels, but sometimes these YouTube channels are actually they have programs that are appropriate for their age. But it's the constant need to be on it that becomes a problem when there is no break. And also when parents just use it as a sort of entertainment so that they can do something else. Then that becomes an issue. I mean, because it breaks the family time, and also, I mean, children at home, they often have very quick dinners. They don't even talk anymore because all they want to, or all they're thinking is, I want to play my game, or I want to go on Facebook and do whatever. So so it cuts a lot of family time and family bonding. So that's that might be an issue that can be seen in a therapeutic session with any kid.
And family time is extremely important. It's good to have family time for the child to develop. What kind of issues can a family or parent with children face if there is not enough family time, they're using too much social media in the sense of their development phases for children. What would be the issues that children could have if they are spending way too much time on social media?
Well, first of all, is just lack of interest, right,
in other people.
In other people.
Yeah, right.
So they become passive or not interested, and it's not good. I mean, because then it also creates communication barriers, right? They can't express themselves, especially if something within the home setting is upsetting them. So they also might avoid the situation instead of addressing it on the spot. Quote me on this.
No.
I mean, I think for somebody to establish a mental health issue, you have to, something has to really disrupt their overall functioning on a day-to-day basis.
Right, yeah.
So if somebody is constantly on their phone, they cannot be removed from it, then that is an addiction.
Yeah.
That is a problem. So if communication issues, as well as social interaction issues. So some children with autism, they actually do very well with screen monitors.
Wow, okay.
So their eye contact is actually improved because of the screen. But it's still a problem face to face.
Right,
the progress is there, but it's also still a problem. Yeah. To non-African families, in the sense that families are families.
True, absolutely.
We all share the same issues one way or another. Some more than others.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I sort of think that are important for families to set is, obviously to limit when and where. You also suggest that families create a detox period.
Okay.
So this is what I mean by this is taking regular multi-day breaks from social media.
Okay.
So say it can help reduce stress and increase your overall bonding experience with your kids. So example, you can try only 10 minutes a day or for 3 weeks, etc. Or say, okay, well, there's no social media this weekend. Yeah. We're going to help children understand why they are going on social media in the first place. So they need to create a kind of a mindfulness in their approach, in the sense of, okay, if their kids are suffering from social media addiction, they need to take those steps and say, okay, why do you feel like you need to go on this particular platform? What is it about it that you want out of this? Is it just because you can't help scrolling up and down, or is it because you want to stay up to date with your friends? I mean, they really need to understand what it is that these kids go on the media, the platforms for.
And social media is good or it's bad, right? But then we do know that we can create safe, secure boundaries for our children to go on those platforms, but also to monitor their habits and make sure that it doesn't become extreme. So when we're talking about addictions, or when they're at the table having dinner, they're on the phone. So we want to be able to highlight the good things about it, but also the boundaries, and making sure that there's other things than social media.
Right. Sure. I wanted to mention about 4 points, and then we'll move on.
Sure.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that over the past 5 years, there's been an increase of studies showing that excessive use of social media can have a negative impact on children's health and mental health. So there's an associated number of psychological problems, so things like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, addiction, as you mentioned, loneliness, depression, anxiety, those things. And then also there's emerging research indicating that there's an association between increased technology use and high rates of depression in children, as well as in youth. There are some increased self-harm and suicidal behaviors. And there's this new buzzword now called fear of missing out.
Right.
So excessive fact-checking has also created a new mental health label, this FOMO. Which is really an extension of larger issues of inclusion and social standing. So this, in essence, it's about once our basic needs are met, like food and shelter and water, the need for inclusion and social interaction ranks up there. And there was actually a study done in the UK based on 80 support workers working with vulnerable groups of children who are or who have been in a gang. They found that 56% of 5 to 10-year-olds report feeling lonely, anxious, or upset in the absence of their phone. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
56%.
Yeah.
That's really high. So their
Right.
phone is that important to them.
Very important.
Very.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about social media and mental health issues, and you said that there's a rise in depression, rise in suicide rates, rise in ADHD, in addiction. Do we know anything about the age group in which, is it more in adolescents, young adults, or is it really the preschool children? Do we know anything about that?
We know a lot more about this in adolescence.
Adolescents, yeah.
Yeah, the teenage years are really a rough time.
They are, yes. And we all know that, yeah. Right, okay. And given the things that you've just mentioned now, this is, shocking, and I'm thinking to myself, what tools do we have out there to at least make it something more awareful, that we have more awareness about it? But then what can we do to prevent it?
Well, I think you've touched on the solution already. So creating awareness about the issue is
Right,
one. So being able to talk about it with our friends, family, colleagues, and then also, having institutions taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So, even shows like this, being able to say, okay, well, this is a problem.
Yeah.
How can we resolve this?
Yeah.
So just, I think public involvement to create the awareness is really needed. And I think also the school environment in particular needs to step up in terms of, knowing that this is a problem and that they need to create sort of approaches to dealing with it.
And would you say, because I know some schools have policies where children or adolescents are not allowed to bring their phones in school, and would that be one way of tackling this?
Right, so for the example, in France, many French schools are prohibiting cell phone use throughout the school day. So, this is very good, especially when we touch on the topic of cyberbullying.
Sure.
But they're sort of stressing the idea that children need to be studying, not playing on their phones.
Yeah. And sure, so the phone has many different usage. You can play on it. You can use it actually to study. So it's hard to get.
Yeah. So actually, one of the positive things about social media is that it actually forces people to collaborate and share ideas. So, not everything is bad. Social media is a complicated world.
It is.
But I think it's important that we always look at the pros and cons before we say, okay, this is completely bad, or this is completely good.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a parent, and I'm really worried about my daughter. I'm thinking that every time she gets a little break, she wants to be on her iPad. And she says it to me constantly, Mommy, I want to be on my
I know about a certain ISG group, then I will say, okay, I think this would be safe. But again, I hardly do it.
No.
Because for me, the treatment or helping the child really happens in my space.
Yeah, so tell us more about that, about your actual practice, because you finally did get to do that. That's something that you wanted to do when you left the US. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your services in your practice.
Okay. Yeah, so I opened my practice about 3 months ago in The Hague, and it's called Child Behavioral Health Network. Basically, the idea is that it's a network of alternative therapists who are working with children. And alternative therapists, I mean by, those who don't just use verbal or talk therapy.
Okay.
So they use different therapies such as art, music, movement, dance therapy. And I'm offering my service as art psychotherapy. And so the idea is also just to sort of offer a menu of different treatments for parents, expat parents, when they come to Holland and don't really know where to look.
Wow.
So
this is quite unique, actually. So it's an alternative therapy network for children who are having
various,
so clinical, non-clinical, which I mean, medical, can be behavioral, social issues. Wow. Yeah. Excellent.
And so I actually, within my own practice, I do individual, I do dyads, so parent and child sessions. I do groups. I even do community healing hearts program, which happens actually every Thursday.
Community
Healing Hearts.
Hearts. Okay, sorry.
The ART in the hearts is capitalized.
Okay.
Because we're using art.
Wow.
As a medium. Yeah. So my space, I mean, I'm still recruiting people to join the practice, but the idea is to be able to offer these alternative therapies.
This is fantastic.
For children.
Yeah, and we can find you on social media.
And I'm just going to take the viewers back a little bit in terms to try to define what cyberbullying is.
Yeah,
and
please do. Yeah.
And I'm going to also offer some tips for parents in order to recognize these symptoms. So bear with me.
We're going to get some tips on cyberbullying.
Yes.
Great. How not to be one.
Well, something like that.
Yeah.
As maybe many of you might know, cyberbullying is another form of bullying that takes place online. So places such as WhatsApp, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, basically anything where people can view, participate, or share content. And cyberbullying is often more intense than traditional bullying because the bullies can often hide, well, they do hide behind the safety of a screen. They're completely removed from the victim's reaction, seldom seeing the vulnerability of their victim and the damage that they're doing to the person. And I just want to make it known that cyberbullying can happen to anybody. So children, adolescents, even adults. It doesn't have a skin color either. So black, white, purple, whatever color you are, it can happen to you. But cyberbullying in children most often occurs in the school environment, in which the bully targets children who are often perceived as different or who are less popular. So these children might include African children, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender children, children with a disability, and also children who are a bit overweight, who have weight issues. And, for example, on a social media comment, a bully might say, nice bathing suit, ever heard of a diet or the gym? That can be very hard for somebody a young child to stomach. Yeah, and
what you write, once it's written, it's there.
It's there.
And that's really, the most painful part, because you can go back and read it, and it becomes this kind of vicious cycle of torture. That's awful.
Yeah, and so it not only makes children feel sad, they also just don't want to go to school anymore.
Absolutely.
They don't, because they know that this devious person is waiting for them. So it's really not good.
No.
And I just want to make a sort of a statistical point, tracing back to the African context.
Yes, please do.
So actually, with cyberbullying is a big problem in South Africa. Done by YouGov, involving an online survey with 28 countries, where South Africa is mentioned or participated. 41% of teens report that cyberbullying made them feel depressed. 26% felt completely alone, and 18% experienced suicidal thoughts. The overall statistics involving many countries.
In many countries,
But in South Africa, it has the 4th highest rate of cyberbullying in the world, with 1 in 5 South African teens having experienced cyberbullying firsthand, and 84% knowing someone who has been a victim of cyberbullying. Yeah. And of those that were surveyed, 43% felt that cyberbullying was a bigger issue for them than drug abuse.
Wow.
So it's
actually taking over something that we, as parents, we're always concerned about drugs, right?
Yeah.
Now, cyberbullying
concerning.
is going to be probably one of the biggest concerns that your children or our children will be facing.
Might be facing, exactly.
Wow.
And the sad thing is that South Africa doesn't have a specific legislation to deal with this. So as a result, when bullying turns into unlawful or criminal behavior, people are often prosecuted under harassment. But they even those harassment issues, they often don't win.
Wow.
So it's a tough issue.
It's an issue that needs to be dealt with not only on us in the community level. We as friends, family, neighbors have to protect our children, the schools, but also we need to take it to the government
level.
Yeah, and get policies in place, laws in place to make sure that children are protected from whoever is behind the other screen. bullying them, calling them names, because that's going to
Sometimes, bullies will somehow get hold of nude pictures of children.
Oh
You know,
dear. Yeah.
some children, even teens, are so much into sexting. So they send nude pictures of themselves to complete random strangers.
Right.
And when those strangers don't get, what they're looking for, or they keep asking for more and more and they don't get it, and the child stops or the adolescent stops, then it becomes, they're like, okay, well, you send me this, otherwise I'm going to blackmail you. So it's really a vicious cycle. But it needs to be addressed.
It needs to be addressed. So we need to address these issues to tell parents what is potentially out there, what potentially their children are at risk of. We need to talk about this to tell schools what the kids are at risk of.
Yeah.
And actually, we're going to do something together, aren't we? Very soon,
Yes.
In August.
Yeah.
So on August the 13th, in Vassana, we'll be holding a symposium to talk about these things. And we're inviting schools, we're inviting health professionals, we're inviting parents to be part of the discussion to see what can be done when it comes to raising awareness about the effects of social media on our children.
Yes, yeah.
And we're really grateful because we've got the location sponsored by Papa Horse in Vassana, and they are a company that deal with medical education, and they've been very kind to sponsor the conference room for us to host that event on the 13th of August. So we'll get more information on that after.
Looking forward.
Yeah,
so much.
Okay, any final things regarding this particular issue? Because, I mean, I'm sure that the viewers will have lots of questions, and if they do, they can always ask them, and I'll be surely going to be asking you to come back on the show.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Because we really want to get this topic out there, because it's not just one time talking about it. We need to.
It's an ongoing
It's
conversation.
an ongoing conversation. But do you have anything else you'd like to share to us, to me, to the viewers?
Yeah, I actually did want to mention some sort of psychoeducation for parents and teachers, educators, sort of on how to better protect our children from cyberbullying.
Great.
So if I can, I'm just going to list the 3 main points before we end.
Yeah.
So I think one of the priorities that we need to focus on is to teach our children to treat everyone with respect, especially their peers, and specifically including those who appear weak or marginal or marginalized. Because I often use this sort of in my psychoeducational material. Oh goodness, I can see myself. In my psychoeducational material, such as, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? These are important sort of communication ways to talk about things.
So you say, is it true?
Yeah.
Is it necessary?
And is it kind?
Okay, good.
And then the second point I want to mention is that as parents, we need to be able to spot the warning signs of cyberbullying. So we need to ask ourselves some of the following questions, like, is your child sad, angry, or distressed during or after using technology? Are they secretive about the iPads they're using, their phones? Are they avoiding certain people? Have their appetite or sleep patterns changed? And then lastly, I just want to say we need to protect and teach our children how to protect themselves at the most practical level or levels. So this means, we need to monitor the technology use, set up filters, blocking inappropriate content, having a rule that social media is only allowed if the child is willing to share their passwords with you.
Wow.
So you can, check.
Monitor,
We need to teach them the basics. So never post personal information online, never ever share anything they wouldn't want the world to see.
No. Because it stays, guys. It stays.
Right? It stays with you for life.
Right.
And I think, especially when it comes to cyberbullying, we need to teach the kids not to react. Because when we react, we feed the perpetrators sort of fuel.
Yeah.
We give fuel to the fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a sense.
Yeah.
And we need to block communication with the cyberbullies. And I think most importantly, we need to maintain an open dialogue with our kids about such things, whether they are the victims themselves or somebody else is. And then just for the sort of, I think, speaking from professional backgrounds, I think that every school should have a social media policy, at least which promises serious consequences to the learners who are found guilty of using hate speech or cyberbullying.
Yeah, oh, I totally agree. And, you know, it's schools, but also at workplaces. Because this is also happening, like you said, to anybody. In a society. Amazing points that we as parents, as teachers, as, you know, leaders for the future children, is that you need to ask questions, right? Look at signs. Is your child different before and after using social media? And I didn't even think about that. Do they get angry, secretive? Are they exhibiting different behaviors? Those are clues for us then to, you know, step in.
And it can be difficult. It can be difficult to watch these, especially when you also have a very busy life. And,
but that shouldn't be an excuse. But it's about being attuned
to your
and
child.
aware of the things, the changes that can happen when your child is exhibiting these kind of behaviors. Wow. We're going to be talking more about that. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say that it just sort of tackling these issues involves everybody.
Absolutely.
So as you said, parents, professionals, schools, the whole community. It takes a community a village to raise a child. So.
I always say that. That's my motto. Absolutely. Absolutely so, great. And we can't do it on our own. No. So, you know,
even
father,
parents, reach out.
They need to reach out. Schools should be able to reach out. We're here on Health Matters. It's been an amazing, amazing show. We're so glad to have you. We're going to invite you back for sure.
Thank you
and
so
I'm
much.
sure that lots of questions are going to come through this. But you and I will be doing something similar in Wassenaar on the 13th of August, hosted by Papa Horse in Wassenaar. Thank you so much to our viewers for watching us. And thank you, Amelie van der Brink, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Take care.